Hello, my friend. I am Mr. X Dreams, your guide in this place that lives in the twilight between the waking world and the dream world. You're now listening to the Dreamercast. Here we explore the stories and ideas that I believe connect all human beings across both space and time. Monsters, magic, gods and ghosts, the multiverse. There is more to this existence than meets the eye. But I tell you the truth, friend. Stay with me, and you and I will together witness the birth of new worlds. Welcome to my realm. Welcome to the Dreamercast. You might recall the story of Samantha, one of my best friends in the world, actually. Samantha told me the story several years ago about the one and only time that she ever actually sleepwalked. And the story leading up to this and the place that she ended up sleepwalking into definitely warrants discussion. But back when I first told this story on my channel on YouTube, I had not yet begun the practice of including that segment where I discuss the stories and I give you my thoughts and theories and things like that. And I always regretted that. But today I have my guest, Samantha herself, who's going to talk through the story with us. And I'll finally be able to redeem myself for not being on board with the idea of including story discussion all those years ago. So we're going to make that right, because it's a really interesting theory that I've thought up over the years thinking about this, and we're going to get into that today. Very interesting paranormal stuff going on in this story. So please welcome to the Dreamercast, my friend Samantha.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to rehash this with me, because it's something I've been wanting to talk about. And I don't know that in all my live streams and all the times that I've discussed older stories, I don't think I've ever touched on this one on YouTube.
Yeah.
So thanks for participating here.
Oh, anytime.
So what was it that led up to this? You ended up sleeping over at your cousin's house, but you had to kind of stay there by yourself for a while first. What led up to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I never really looked forward going there where no one's there. Usually I go there on weekends where my cousin or mom are present, but it was, I believe, a Friday, so I was sick, so I decided to stay home from school that day, and I was already planning on going to spend the weekend there, so my dad dropped me off at her house, at my cousin's house, and they live in a townhome, the basement part of the townhome, with 3 levels. So the creepy part about that townhome is the basement, and in that basement there's this long dark hallway, and the couch is just adjacent to that hallway. So I decided to watch TV and distract myself, because my cousin was, of course, at school and her mom was at work that day. And it's just, you just feel like there's just something there, like staring at you.
Because the long dark hallway is like right behind you on that couch, right?
Correct.
And if anybody's been to New York and been into any homes in New York that have basements, they are almost exclusively extremely creepy places. I've never seen a basement in New York that wasn't a very unsettling place to be at pretty much all times.
I agree. Unless it's remodeled, but yes, that one was creepy.
Yeah, you and I are both from New York originally, so it's we're very familiar with the idea of a creepy basement.
Mm-hmm. So the next thing that happened was I felt this you know how if someone walks past you, like, or runs past you really quickly, I just felt this breeze, which normally doesn't happen, you know,
In a basement.
in the basement, exactly. And that is when I decided to go upstairs, because my cousin said you could go to the neighbors at any moment, because she also knows that her where she's living is pretty creepy. So, and that's where I spent most of my time, upstairs, until she got home from school. And when sleeping there in the past, there used to be this doorway in her grandmother's bedroom that was way in the back of the basement. It's almost like a rectangular shaped basement. So her grandmother's room is on the left side, and there's this short door that I guess there was some type of cellar door, I guess, or storage area. And I used to inquire about it because I never knew what it was, seeing it every time I went there. And she did show me that one day, and there's just this little, how do you call it?
Like a crawl space,
yeah,
right?
a crawl space. And the odd thing about it was that the floor was there were just pieces of cement blocks there, almost broken up. Like it wasn't just a smooth, like just a floor, a crawl space would be. And there was a light under there too, so I would assume it was some sort of storage area, I guess. And
so if I recall correctly from the story, that was like, it was only like 3 or 4 feet high, like maybe 4 feet wide and like 6 feet deep, like a little tiny crawl space, maybe for storing luggage or other items that don't really need to be in the normal part of the house. And then in the middle of that was just a chain with a light bulb, a bare light bulb with a little pull chain with it. So just to have illumination so you could find whatever you need to find in that little crawl space. But the floor was just broken up pieces of concrete, right?
Correct. Yes. And what I remember was in order to enter it, which we did, we had to bend down to get into it.
Yeah, even as kids, you had to like kind of crawl into it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Real quick, I want to explain something to the audience in case people are not aware. If you don't live in the Northeast or in a place that has a lot of basements, the way that the houses are set up, it'll be like a 2-story house with a basement, and that means there's 3 levels, and each of those levels has its own separate entrance and can be rented out by a separate family. So that's the way this house was situated, right?
Correct.
So there was potentially a family on the second floor, a separate family on the first floor, which is the one that you would go to when you were too creeped out by the basement, and then your cousin Vanessa's family was renting out the basement itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing is owned. That whole building is owned by a landlord, basically.
Yes, a landlord.
So just so everybody understands how that whole arrangement works, it's not very intuitive. I don't think, for some people anyway.
Yeah, that is exactly how it's set up, and I just regret asking. I remember regretting asking my cousin about that after what happened to me, but I'll go on and explain it. But that evening, we usually rent movies to watch, and I'm not fond of scary movies, but my cousin is, so I entertained the idea, and we rented a scary movie. And
she's not lying, folks. It's in my whole life of knowing her, I've only gotten her to watch maybe 2 or 3 scary movies.
I mean,
it's
why
kind
put
of silly,
yourself
but
through that? But I guess some people
it's fun.
Their cup of tea, but not mine. So that night we go to bed after watching the scary movie, and I awaken as I turn on the light in that crawl space. I don't know how I got there. I immediately turn off the light. I probably would have left it on, but I immediately pulled the light, turned off the light, and went back to my cousin's room, which was probably like a few feet away. And try to go back to sleep.
And if memory serves, the thing that woke you up from your sleepwalking event was the sound of the light turning on, right?
Yes, the sound and the brightness.
You sleepwalked, if that's the way you say that in past tense, I think so. You sleepwalked into that crawl space. You go through the hallway into Vanessa's grandmother's room, open the door to the crawl space, get down on your knees, crawl in there on top over the broken pieces of concrete, and then you reach up, still sleeping, and pull the little chain on the light in the middle of that dark crawl space. And the sound of that chain being pulled, combined with the bright light from the bare bulb right in front of your face, suddenly wakes you up, and now you're immediately inundated with these feelings, the feelings of the concrete pressing into your knees and your legs, your hand, and the brightness overwhelming your vision. And
Correct.
you were just
Yep.
you were just asleep, and now all of a sudden you're in pain, and there's a bright light in front of your face, and you're in this extremely creepy environment.
Yeah, that, and just in shock because this never happened to me before.
Right. And you were, what, 14, you said?
Yep, 14 years old. And I just had this feeling of fear and confusion, of course. I just didn't, I don't know, it was just kind of like I was in a dream almost. But it was reality. So I just quickly turned the light off and crawled out and went back into my cousin's room. Everyone was sleeping. I can't recall. I don't know if I tried to wake her up. I don't think I did, but I wanted to. But instead, I just covered my head and closed my eyes and hoped that I fell asleep, which eventually I did, probably very uncomfortably, but I did eventually fall asleep.
That must have been some experience, and we haven't. There's a few things that I remember speaking to you about that we haven't touched on yet, as far as the overall creepiness of that basement house. I remember you saying that your cousin would. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but your cousin would say that even when the people above them were not home, they would hear these loud footsteps in the, coming from the ceiling, as though a bunch of people were stomping around on that level above the basement level.
Yep,
even, knowing for a fact that no one is home in that house.
Yeah, my cousin was all too aware that there was something odd about that townhome.
And the families that were renting above,
of course,
on that floor would kind of like come and go very often, right?
Yep. I think that family that was there during the time my cousin was there was, I guess, unique in the fact that they stayed there a little bit longer, I guess, than previous renters. But yes, they've had a few different renters that came and left because of that.
So another thing, and this particular aspect is going to really feed into the theory that I have developed about the experience that you had. And I remember you saying that when you're sitting in that couch in the basement with your back facing that long dark hallway, and those basement hallways in New York particularly can become so dark. 3 feet into the hallway, it turns into like a fog of just pitch blackness somehow. Doesn't even really make complete sense to me.
No,
but I know that. I know how that looks.
Yeah, because for one, it's a basement, and the only source of light is the side door entrance that I would go into, and the back door. It would be to the backyard. So there's,
Mm-hmm.
no windows in between that, if you understand what I
Yeah.
mean.
So it's just overall nearly devoid of light in
Yes.
many spots.
Yes.
So, and you said that you kind of had a feeling of being watched from that hallway, and down that hallway is sort of where that crawl space is, because her grandmother's room was down there, correct?
Yes, correct.
So I remember when we were first talking about this, you did some research about that home. Like, you looked up the address, you called up Vanessa and found out the address of that
Mm-hmm.
house in Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
and found out that it was owned by this old Italian couple that were already deceased by the time you were looking this
Mm-hmm.
up. So I assume they were probably elderly back then when this story takes place. And you looked up that couple and found that they had some ties to the mafia in
Yes.
some way.
Yeah, so I looked up the names of the couples to see if I found anything online, and something came up that showed that they may have had a possible tie to the mafia. I'm not sure how accurate it would be, but yeah, this townhome, I believe when I looked it up, was built in the 1920s. So yeah, that could be a possibility of something,
Definitely.
yeah, happening down there. Because being in that crawl space, I did have just this odd feeling. It just wasn't normal. And I'm not, you know me, I'm not a type of person that have had paranormal experiences before. This was my first and I hope last experience. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there was just this odd feeling being there.
Yeah, and that's strange in itself, because, like I say this on the show all the time. Most people that I've run into that have had a paranormal experience, if you had one, you're going to have another one at some point, or there's something, multiple odd things happen to you throughout the course of your life. It's very rare that I find someone that it was one and done. They had one thing happen that was really creepy and bizarre that they couldn't explain, and then everything else was kind of smoother sailing, paranormal wise, throughout their life. So you're definitely a very unique case in that
Mm-hmm.
in that respect. But what I feel, and that makes it even stranger to me, that you were able to be affected by whatever was in that crawl space in such a way that you sleepwalked and went in there.
Yeah.
And the way that I see it, the way I kind of theorize this in my mind, is with that floor, with the concrete broken up and all that stuff, there could have been something buried there.
Possibly. Because I'm not, it's just so people are aware, I'm not the type of person who just inquires about things for no reason. So I've seen that door so many times, I just had to ask, what it was. And just so people are aware, my cousin and her family, they, she showed me what it was, but they never really paid attention to it that much. They just said, yeah, we don't know what it is. We don't use it. And it's just this empty, this empty, odd room, that's in the back of the basement area.
Yeah, and I could get that because, they were renting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it belonged to them and they can root around and mess around with stuff that they don't own.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but the fact that they were aware of it and that Vanessa had been in there,
mm-hmm.
but you go there one time and then that very day you end up back there sleepwalking.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, it's like this. Someone is buried in there. Maybe it's connected to the mafia, maybe not. But I don't see how someone could, murder someone and bury them in a crawl space in their home and it's not mafia related. That just sounds weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Could anything is possible though, as I always like to say. But in my mind, someone was there, and there's some kind of residual energy from that person probably trying to call out to a lot of people. But when you went there, maybe it was able to connect with you in some way.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? In a way that it could not with other people. And maybe it was just someone saying, hey, send someone to find me here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I need help. My body is still here, you know. Who knows? That just brings up all these other questions to me.
Yeah, I've been asking myself that for a while now. Like, why me? Yeah. It's very odd, but I hope there isn't someone down there, but there possibly could have been, or there possibly could have been some sort of, what you said, something, you know, calling or trying to get help in some way, because that was a very odd experience to happen to me.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And, you know, there's something that I remember from your story that I don't know if you purposefully left it out, maybe because it's too creepy or gross, but I'm going to put you on the spot. I remember you saying that while you were trying to get away, so basically you could not get a break this week on that particular weekend. Mm-hmm. You were creeped out. You felt like somebody was watching you. You felt these breezes going by every time you were sitting in the couch with your back towards the long, dark New York basement hallway. And eventually you had enough. You said, you know what, I'm just going to go upstairs and hang out with the neighbors. Mm-hmm. And when you were up there, you asked the lady for a glass of water. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So what happened? I want you to squirm. So I'm going to have you tell the story of what exactly happened.
Okay, so I go upstairs and I ask for, you know, just to get away from all that creepiness in the basement. And sitting up there for a while, I asked for a glass of water, and she gives me a glass of water and with ice. And as I'm taking a sip, I've taken a few sips from it before noticing it, but as I take maybe another few sips from it, I see a dead cockroach.
So the ice sort of, after what, like maybe your fourth or fifth sip, you go in for another sip.
Yes.
And the ice sort of shifts around.
Yep, and
revealing the slightly buoyant corpse
yes.
of a cockroach in the glass. So, showing you that you've been drinking cockroach water.
Yeah, exactly.
And if this was a horror movie, that scene would fit right in.
Of course it would.
If this scenario was like, you know, an act from a horror movie, just imagining that cockroach floating up and popping up over the water, and the look on your face must have been priceless. I would love to have seen that, although I kind of feel bad that it happened. And what did though your reaction was pretty good though.
Yeah, I kept my cool. The type of person who didn't want to embarrass the people, because I've known them before, you know, having spent time over there at my cousin's house. So I calmly put the glass down and waited for the lady to exit the kitchen, where I just poured it out into the sink. Yeah.
So you could have just blew up her whole spot and just started freaking out. And the funny thing is that I know you now, You know, that was a few years ago. You would probably destroy half of whatever room you happen to be standing in.
Yes.
Just in the bare instinctual, the visceral reaction to seeing a cockroach, let alone knowing that you just drank water from where it was. You've changed in those years.
I have.
That's funny. I don't even want to know what would happen if you happen to pick up a cup right now in your kitchen and saw a cockroach in the glass. Oh my gosh.
I'm just trying to avoid thinking of the possible chance of drinking a piece of it right now.
Yeah, you probably got like maybe a leg or an antenna or something. You know, who knows? But hey, it probably made you stronger.
Maybe I'll live an extra couple years.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be good. You know, a cockroach a day keeps the doctor away. Someone says that, I'm sure. Yeah, so I guess we have to take a vote on what's scarier, the cockroach drinking cockroach water or a possible mafia, victim coming back from the grave to lure people into a crawl space to hopefully discover his or her body. And that, I think the ghost thing is a little creepier, honestly.
Really? Because I was just thinking I would choose the sitting in that basement than having something
really
from. Yes.
So you'd rather spend 10 minutes sitting in that crawl space than drink 5 sips of cockroach water?
I think so.
Okay, I believe you. Actually, I can't shake the feeling that, and I know it's a common thing when you're sitting with your back towards, or even if you're just near a dark, shadowy area where it just like turns into a dark void, can't see any details in there. I know it's a common thing to feel like you're being watched, but the idea of the combination of there being possibly some type of entity there in that area, it just adds something to, the concept, the feeling of being watched from that specific location.
And it does,
it's
because
very eerie.
Yeah, just to mention too, the reason why I was already nervous of staying at my cousin's apartment alone was because she had previously mentioned that she also feels that townhome is haunted. So, that didn't help.
Yeah. I wonder what other things. I mean, if you just saw that on one particular day, imagine being there every day. Yeah, living there. I know they said that they would hear footsteps when the people weren't home, but there's got to be even more going on there that she's. And I know Vanessa now. I don't know that, sometimes people as they grow older, they sort of convince themselves that the things that they used to believe are impossible, or that it can't have been what they were thinking it might have been. So I don't know that she would see it the same way now. She probably would try to rationalize it. But I would like to, next time the three of us are in a room together, whenever that may be in the future, we should ask her about that and see what she remembers.
That would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think that'll about do it for this story. It's very, very interesting, very thought-provoking, and creepy. I hope you all enjoyed listening to this chat. It's been a long time coming because, like I said, it was about, I think, 3.5 years ago that I first posted my rendition of this story on my YouTube channel, Mr. X Dreams. If you want to hear more, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Check me out on YouTube and go to MrXDreams.com for everything Mr. X Dreams, all the stuff that I offer as well. And thank you, Sam, for your time. I'm sure I'll be seeing you later on Maybe even today. Who knows?
No problem.
We'll do something. We'll hang out in real life.
Definitely.
And yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, your weekend. I don't know when you're listening to this, where you're at, but I hope you're doing well, my friend. And stay tuned for the outro. Take care. And there you have it, friends. Yet another fascinating look beyond the veil. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope I've convinced you to take another step or two down the rabbit hole. Make sure you subscribe to the Dreamercast, so you never miss out on our next unique journey into the realm of mystery. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to drop me a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really helps me out, and I would very much appreciate it. I'd love it if you shared the show with your friends and family, anyone with a taste for the truly fascinating questions that we explore here. If you have a paranormal story of your own that you would like to share with me, head over to my website, mrxdreams.com, where you'll find a story submission page along with links to my merchandise, YouTube channel, and other ways to support the show. Until next time, my friends, I'm Mr. X Dreams, and I hope to see you again soon on the Dreamercast.